is this between us?
The number one podcast in the world.
This is
the JBU.Show featuring Austin,
from the Miller Talk Podcast,
ALLAN,
the American Sincerest,
and now your host,
Cam Allen.
All right, how's it going, everybody? My name is Chris, and this is the JBU Show. Joining me tonight is my co-host from the Miller Talk Podcast, Austin. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I'm doing the old Oklahoma pastime, and it's watching tornadoes.
I see that. So we have some breaking news about a thwarted mass shooting, but we also have some breaking news about some tornadoes on the ground in Oklahoma right now, don't we?
Mm-hmm. South of Enid, Oklahoma.
That's right. That's airport. Okay.
They're saying it's an EF2 at least. It might be an EF3, which is fairly
it's a big
strong.
tornado.
Fertilizer company is what you're
Which
seeing
is
behind
right here.
you. Yes.
This is a
Are you you're not at risk of having to run to the basement anytime soon, are you?
No, this is way far away from me.
Okay, good deal.
Like 2-3 hour drive.
Because again, we would
I
have had
need
to
to
have
go up there
started.
this weekend, though.
We would have had to have started betting odds if that was the case.
Yeah, I mean,
That is people's homes, vehicles,
Yeah.
trees.
You know, I kind of understand why you guys. I get that there's not a lot to do in Oklahoma, but barring that, it's still pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, this here is David Payne. He's been doing this since he was like 30,
Oh yeah.
so he knows how to put on a show too.
Right? Here's Breckenridge. Here's Fairmont. And I'm just worried, it could occlude and could swing north up to 412. It could do that. Right now, it's right here.
I love the speculation. That's my favorite part about these things. The speculation. It could do this. It could do that. It could do
It has
all
been
of
on
this.
the
It's not going to do
ground
any
for
of
a
it,
while.
but it could.
I have the storm track taking it a little more northeast.
I've
Yeah,
got
this
to
thing's
say
been
at
going for a
least
minute.
10 minutes it's been on the ground. That's wild.
That a
That's got to
long-ass
be a
time.
half a mile wide.
Sad but incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that thing's
Folks that are
massive.
watching this right now, if you do not listen to us and do what you're supposed to do, go to the lowest level, center part of the house. Listen to me. You could be hurt severely, or you could lose your life if this hits you. This is a violent tornado. Kyle, you're hot, and this is a bad deal. This is a
And see that tree?
Yeah, I saw that. Was that on fire?
No, it was broken half.
And this is going to go on the eastern.
Oh, I see. He's got flashers on there.
Let's go to Kyle and bring him in. Kyle, multiple vortex tornado, still a strong to violent tornado right out your window there.
It's like
Go
it's-
ahead.
Ah, man.
Thinning up a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Very, very destructive. Oh, power lines. Okay. Very, very destructive tornado. Sorry, we're trying to get east with it. We have
Dang.
several houses damaged by it already. David,
Mm.
very, very large, dangerous tornado. Oh my gosh, look at that house. Oh.
He's running right over someone's house.
I can't see it. Okay.
Oh my God.
Oh.
That's
Yeah. EF3 damage,
Yeah.
maybe more. Okay, so
Lord.
this is the path. This is going to be live only on News 9. EF3 damage as he's driving through the damage. This just happened
Wow.
a minute ago, 2 minutes ago.
The
There's
debris is lofted to 15,000 feet in the air,
okay,
David.
that's going to be an EF3, maybe a 4. Strong and violent.
Oh, it looks like it's getting thick again.
On the ground now for what, 10 miles?
10 miles.
And okay, Justin, keep him going east.
Okay, I'll give you the streets here, David. This is
Okay.
East-West Road is Fox Drive. The north-south is
Back to Links 1 control room.
16th Street.
Okay. We have 30th Street and 16th Street. Coming up on 30th, what's this? Oh, Southgate Road. Southgate Road and 30th
All right.
Street.
I'm going to get on
back
to the
16th
stories we got for
Street.
tonight. Let us know if anything crazy happens here, all right?
It's going all the way.
All right.
It's
And I got
getting
Our
crazy.
resident,
412.
Oklahoman here. I'll leave it up there in the corner so you guys can see it. At least while I don't have any videos playing. So, breaking before we got on air here, I'm not sure exactly when it broke today, but that's when I saw it, so close enough. A ex-police officer planned a mass shooting at a New Orleans festival Apparently, his intent was to kill a large number of black people, but it was thwarted, thankfully, by, I'm not sure if it's local police or the FBI here. Let's find out. Authorities say former North Carolina law enforcement officer planned to kill black people in a mass shooting at a major New Orleans festival, but was arrested at a Florida hotel with a handgun and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Officials in several states did not name the event, but the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, commonly known as Jazz Fest, runs from Thursday through May 3rd. The gathering attracted about 460,000 people last year. Christopher Gilliam of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, was wanted for terroristic threats, the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office in Florida posted online Thursday. Federal authorities told the sheriff's office that Gilliam was in the Florida Panhandle heading to do a mass shooting at a large festival in Louisiana. Sheriff's office did not name the federal agency, and the FBI office in New Orleans did not immediately respond to request for comment. The Okaloosa Sheriff's Office said Gilliam was arrested without incident Wednesday night at a hotel in Destin and posted a photo of him being led away in handcuffs. Deputies recovered a handgun, about 200 rounds of ammunition from the hotel, the statement said, and Gilliam was arrested as a fugitive from justice and will be extradited to Louisiana to face charges there, the sheriff's office also said. It was not immediately known if he had a lawyer, and the Associated Press left a message on the phone number. Okay. I also have a video here, so let's go to that and see if we can get some further details. As well, I have an image of the guy. Here's some photos for you.
It almost dropped a second.
A baby tornado?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I like saying tornado so much.
A North Carolina man arrested in Okaloosa County, Florida, is accused of plotting a mass shooting in New Orleans. Deputies say they found former Chapel Hill police officer Christopher.
Something seems odd about this. I know you're busy looking at the tornado, so you don't see this. But they posted a picture
Former
of
Chapel Hill police
the ammunition that he had, which are in fact common rounds used by law enforcement. You have Winchester Rangers and Spear Lawman. But the gun he was apparently planning to use looks like a Ruger LCP. If you were going to commit a mass atrocity, and I know you never would, but just from a tactical perspective, would that not be like the last gun you would choose? Or pretty close to it?
Yeah.
So, people watching on my stream here, they can see it on the screen. But a Ruger LCP, that's like a backup gun. It's got like a 1-inch barrel. Maybe he had a specific, like, idea in mind or something. Maybe he was concerned about being able to conceal it and get it across, security or whatever. Maybe that's why, but I see 3 magazines, what looks like some FMJ rounds, which I don't know that matters all that much, and then there's 2 boxes of Spear Lawman and a box of Winchester Rangers. It's an odd choice. And we've seen some odd choices in mass shootings before, but those are usually because it's like a teenager that stole their parents' gun or whatever, and it's the only gun they had access to. Maybe this is the only clean gun he could get access to. Maybe there's just something odd about this. But anyway, sorry.
Officer Christopher Gilliam in a Destin hotel room. They say he was planning a mass shooting at a festival in New Orleans and then suicide by cop. Deputies say they found a handgun and around 200 rounds of ammunition. He'll be extradited to Louisiana to face a charge of making terroristic threats. Today, a Theodore man gave up his...
For somebody that is a former police officer, there just seems like very little thinking going on here. And that's, I guess there would be for anybody planning on committing a mass shooting, but I don't know. This just seems very, very odd. Anyway, that's all the details we have right now. Thankfully, it was thwarted by police, and that's really all we all we have. Otherwise, we would have been waking up tomorrow morning to a mass shooting in Louisiana. But this ties into our main storyline for tonight. What, did the tornado take over the whole sky?
I don't think so.
Where is it? Is it finally receding? Is that what's going on?
I really don't know.
Anyway, that ties into our main story tonight, which next brings us to the Los Angeles Times in an opinion piece that was posted there titled, "Letters to the Editor, Another Mass Shooting, More Thoughts and Prayers, We Need Real Action." Once again, all we get from top Republican leaders is thoughts and prayers for the victims and survivors of mass shootings. They're referring to the domestic violence shooting in Louisiana on April 19th that we reported, was it yesterday on the show? What we need is not more empty words, but real action against gun violence, such as repealing and replacing the Second Amendment. Remember, they're not coming after your guns or your right to own guns. Now they're just talking about repealing the Second Amendment. But it's not about taking your guns. It's not about that at all. With tighter gun control measures while maintaining the right to have a weapon for home protection. This is a dramatic shift in anti-gun rhetoric. They're now talking about restricting your right to own a weapon to a home. They're talking about repealing the Second Amendment, so they're removing your right altogether, as well as acknowledging that it is your right, not a collective right of the militia. There's a lot here that's incredibly disturbing in that one little sentence. Studies indicate that gun violence costs more than $500 billion a year. Yes, studies indicate. They do link to a study. Let's see what it says real quick, because that's nonsense. $500 billion a year. That's $500 billion. Oh, look at that. It comes from every town. Shocking. At a moment when the United States needs to marshal all its resources to invest in education, worker skills, and building healthier, safer, more sustainable communities, what moment do we not need to be doing that? Our federal, state, and local governments are spending a combined average of $35 million a day to deal with the aftermath of gun violence across the country. Really? Let's see how they get to that number real quick. 5 times the national budget for Department of Education. Lifetime costs associated with gun violence includes 3 types of costs. Immediate costs starting with the scene, such as investigations and medical treatment. Subsequent costs, such as treatment and long-term physical and mental health care. Earning loss to disability or death. And criminal justice costs. The cost estimates of quality of life lost over a victim's lifespan for pain and suffering of the victim's family. So they're estimating the cost of quality of life lost over a victim's lifespan for pain and suffering of the victim and their family. So that's how they get to $557 billion. They basically just shove a bunch of billions in there for an estimate. It's not an actual number that costs things. Anyway. As survivors, families, communities, employers, taxpayers, all the enormous associated costs with violence, whether we own a gun or not, told is staggering, yada yada. What? They say we lose an estimated $147.32 million per day related to work missed due to injury or death. Okay, but what does that have to do with shootings? Injury or death could mean literally anything.
Literally.
American taxpayers pay $30 million every day in police and criminal justice costs for investigation, prosecution, and incarceration. Incarceration. Again, not related to mass shooters. Total. This is the most nonsense thing I think I've ever read from Everytown, and I've read a lot of nonsense from Everytown. Now they claim society loses $1.34 billion a day in quality of life costs. Quality of life costs from the suffering and lost well-being of gun violence victims and their family. Oh, God. Oh, we can use their interactive tool. Let's see if that'll tell me. I want to know how much they're factoring for each thing.
It's trying to pull up right now, but it's still going. It's really thinned up.
It has thinned up quite a bit, but yeah, it is still going. That's incredible.
It just hit a neighborhood. It probably skimmed it, but and now the guy who's on the ground with it said it looks like it's getting wider.
So they claim with their cost estimate, economic cost calculator, they're claiming that a mass shooting in Washington state where there are 10 people shot and killed would cost Washington $172,906,000 with $5.49 million cost borne by the taxpayer. Where's the rest of the cost going? Because the taxpayer is the only source of income for the government. So the rest of the cost is just magic, right? So in reality, it's probably costing $5 million. And you're just adding $172,906 for emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
Exactly. Breakdown, $557 billion. They say $2.8 billion is medical costs, $53.8 is work loss costs, $11 billion in police and criminal justice costs, $500 million in employer cost. And look at that. Okay. So they claim it's $557 billion a year, $2.8 billion in medical costs, $53 billion in work loss costs, $11 billion in police and criminal justice costs, $500 million in employer costs. That leaves a tidy $489.1 billion in quality of life lost.
Wow.
That's not real money. They just made that number up and said, yeah, that sounds good. You cannot tangibly put a number on that. So even if we took the rest of these prices at face value, they're overestimating by 5 times the actual cost to the taxpayer. They claim each non-fatal gun injury costs $25,000 and each gun death costs the taxpayer $274,000. I want to see lost quality of life. The damage caused by gun violence, of course, is not limited to the individual who is shot. When a person's life is cut short or altered in this way, the trajectory of their family's life changes forever as well, and the high cost that society bears extends far beyond medical bills. In America, gun violence costs an estimated $489.08 billion annually in lost quality of life. Quality of life represents the present value of what was irreparably damaged when a victim's life was cut short or a survivor was permanently disabled by gun violence. Imagine if we did this through all of history. I don't know if you know this, but 100 years ago, not that long ago, 1926-ish, like 50% of people didn't make it past the age of 25. A lot of that was because of violence. Some of that was because of healthcare. Not healthcare specifically, but just health in general.
Some of that was just because of chance.
A lot of it was just because of chance. Like, imagine if we totaled the quality of life lost in billions of dollars. It's just nonsense. They just make up this nonsense so that they can put out this ridiculously large number and say gun violence cost Americans more money than healthcare every year. More money than we spend on our fucking military every year. Damn near. It's a little bit less. But even though, at minimum, the $489 billion is just made up. Completely made up. I will post the links to this crap after the show. The per resident economic cost of gun violence in in the United States, rather, is $1,698, apparently. That's how much you pay individually. Okay, let's get off this every town bullshit and go back to the story. Studies indicate that gun violence costs more than $500 billion yearly in the U.S. for funerals, hospital recovery costs for the injured, investigative agencies' budgets, and lost wages, as well as causing mental anguish for families and victims. Notice how they rephrase that in a way that sounds more palatable. Unfortunately, these mass shootings have become so routine in the U.S. that they no longer are front-page news. We'll talk about the truth to that in a minute. Eight children are dead at the hand of their father and uncle in Louisiana. He murdered them with an assault-style rifle in a domestic incident. The shooter had a felony firearms conviction, but he still had access to a high-powered weapon. Huh? You mean it wasn't a legal gun? I wonder how he ever could have obtained it. California has the strongest gun laws in the nation, and those laws save lives. California has more mass shootings per year than any other state. Per capita, not just because of their bigger population. Louisiana, where the shooting occurred, has some of the weakest firearm laws in the country. Yeah, it also has the least number, as far as I'm aware. It's damn near the least number. I mean, it's probably whatever state, Wisconsin or whatever, that has the least number. But Louisiana has a very low number. When was the last time you heard of a mass shooting in Louisiana? And this doesn't even qualify as a mass shooting. This is domestic violence, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Some of the weakest firearm laws in the country have, and lawmakers have pushed to expand access to firearms in recent years. Yeah, and gun crime has gone down. They could pass an extreme risk protection order to allow temporary removal of firearms from individuals at risk of causing harm, but they haven't. Do you remember which mass shooting it was just prior to Louisiana where there was ERPOs and red flags in place and they still had their guns? Or still had access to guns? It was one of the recent ones, and I don't remember exactly which one offhand, but warning signs were ignored.
I mean, the Catholic Church one?
It might
That was like a year ago almost.
Yeah, it might have been. It's been a while since we've had a legit public shooting.
There was another one. I mean, what about the... he was either a senator or a House representative, used to be, or a governor. I don't know. And the dude championed gun control and red flag laws and all this stuff, and then he murdered his wife and shot himself. That was just a week ago or so.
Oh, mayor assistant or lieutenant governor, that's what it was, in Virginia. Abigail Spanberger's lieutenant governor, big anti-gun proponent, committed a mass killing of his family just like this. Anyway, they conclude by saying warning signs were ignored, policy solutions were discarded, and 8 kids are dead. Firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens in the U.S. That's an absolute lie. We'll come back to that in a second. But some lawmakers don't care enough to do anything about it. They just don't give a damn. So you notice how they jump on this Louisiana one to make this point, because Louisiana has low firearms laws. The last state, though, to have a mass shooting with low firearm laws was Texas and Florida. The vast majority of the rest of the states are always blue states with extremely strict laws. We had Rhode Island not too long ago. That Rhode Island was one where he had red flags or whatever. We had Rhode Island. We had New York. We had California. We had Colorado. That was farther back, though. I think Nashville even has recently or decently strict rules, at least in Nashville itself. And I'm not trying to say that this is exclusively a blue state thing. It's not. But there is zero correlation between lesser laws and more violence. In fact, the correlation is the opposite. The more restrictive the gun laws, the more likely mass shootings are common. Now, how common are mass shootings? Because there's been a clever wordplay or shift in language, and this is what the left does every single time. There's been a clever language shift over the last, what would you say, 5 years or so, where we've gone from using the FBI data for a mass shooting to the gun violence archive. And that's why it seems like all of a sudden there is an explosion in mass shootings, and they're telling you about a new mass shooting every single week. Well, that's because the gun violence archive has the broadest definition of mass shooting of any of the sources in the country. They include robbery, domestic violence, gang violence, and any number of other crimes. When in reality, any American that hears the word mass shooting thinks of a shooting in a public place with innocent civilians as the target and is ideologically motivated. Does that sound about right? Is that a good way to summarize what we think of as a mass shooting, generally speaking?
Yeah. And sometimes they like to be talking about mass shootings and then just move that to school shootings without actually saying it, and then bringing up the data of school shootings and correlating it to mass shootings, and then not even giving you the full information that what this amount of school shootings means.
Sure.
It means any time a firearm is discharged on school property. Not that like, 5 people got killed when that happened. It
Correct.
could literally just be an ND in the parking lot.
And I do consider I do consider school shootings where there are actual victims shot. I do consider that to be a mass shooting. But you're right. What they consider school shootings is way beyond just a kid bringing a gun to school and shooting his classmates. It includes all the things that you mentioned. And that's this clever wordplay that they've done. And that's how they come out and say that there's been, let me see what Gun Violence Archive says for right now. They're claiming 3,909 homicides, murders, unintentional shootings, and defensive uses of guns. 6,700 total injuries. Right now, for 2026, they are claiming 121 mass shootings. 121. Other than Louisiana, and I think Rhode Island was the last one. Am I forgetting one? We have seen.
That's the only ones I can think of.
We have seen an increase. In Louisiana, again, that doesn't count. It's domestic violence. And the reason why it matters, to be clear, because a lot of people say, well, a lot of people were shot, so what does it matter? You don't address domestic violence the same way you address somebody that is going into public to shoot random strangers for an ideological motivation. You don't address gang violence the same way you address domestic violence. You don't address robbery the same way you address gang violence. It matters the way we define these things. And what matters far more is the fact that we have shifted the language from something it never meant to something it now means to make it seem like this problem has exploded, when in reality it hasn't really changed all that much. It has gone up a little bit, but it started to go back down in recent years. It went up during the Joe Biden years, and then it started to go back down since. There's definitely a
But
problem.
where are we seeing the highest increase of these shootings happening at? Is it at gun stores or police departments or military bases?
It is almost exclusively gun-free zones. And by the way, military
Oh.
bases are gun-free zones. Well,
Not
until
anymore.
recently. Correct, not anymore.
So just a quick update though, the tornado has lifted, but it's still got wings, so we could drop again. But as of right now, it's up.
It still has wings.
It could drop again.
Wow, look at this map from Gun Violence Archive. This is incredible. These are all mass shootings according to Gun Violence Archive. Let's see what some of these are here. October 24th, 2021. So this covers all years from 2014 to 26. Okay, so let's bring this up to 2026. Can I change it? Do I really have to do this one at a time? Ugh. Ooh, there's a lot of clicks. January 23, January 24, January 25, September, October, November, December, January 26. So January 1st, 26 to what's today? 23, 26. It's still showing like damn near the same number of dots. And you can see where they coalesce here. Notice not a lot here in Idaho, ton in Washington, Oregon, and California. There's obviously a good amount in Texas, but that has a lot to do with their border. Florida, Georgia, North and South Carolina, Virginia, D.C. is riddled. All right, now let's see here. Incidents, not victims. And characteristics? We don't need officer-involved shootings. But we'll leave the rest because they consider all of those to be mass shootings. Now let's go look. So, here in Washington, I do not believe we've had a single mass shooting in Washington this year. If there was one at the beginning of the year I'm forgetting about, I'll let you know when I find it. But we'll take a look at Washington because I'm familiar with Washington and see. Let's see. One person killed. Oh, wait. Did I switch this to the wrong thing? That's victims, characteristics. I did. Okay, so we want to do this. There we go. Let's just go mass shooting and see what it says. Off, 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 off. All right. So it claims there were 4 injured in Auburn in a mass shooting. Let's see what we got. Phoenix Rising Apartments, Auburn, Washington, 2926. Adult males, 18 plus. Injured, 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 injured. Oh, 2 females, 2 males, sorry. 4 plus victims injured or killed. After shooting a supportive housing center for young adults. 1 gun involved. So it's gang violence. Or drug violence, one of the two. 4 people are in the hospital after a shooting at a supportive housing center for young adults in Auburn. When police got the Valley City's Phoenix Rising off of 26 and I Streets around 4:30 Monday, they found 3 women shot inside an apartment and later tracked down a 4th person, a man, they say is connected to the incident. So we've already found 3 errors with the GVA data so far. Or the news agency, one of the two. At last check from the Harborview Medical Center early Tuesday, one of the woman's injuries was considered critical and other victims were labeled serious, third satisfactory. There remained unanswered questions about the motive for the shooting at the complex for homeless young adults working to transition into permanent supportive housing. Police were called for a report of a woman shot and they found 2 more victims, yada yada. It all happened in the apartment where they knew each other. Whether they didn't were uncertain. A 4th victim discovered after a man buying a phone at the Apple store in South Center mentioned he had been shot. Tukwila police responded. Men taken to Harborview. Yada yada. Okay. Does that sound like a mass shooting to you? 4 people shot inside an apartment over what was almost certainly drugs.
No.
And there's multiple errors in the gun violence archive data as well. First of all, they claimed it was 2 males and 2 females. It was in fact 3 females, and 1 male. They also claim that a mass shooting is only counted if there are 4 victims injured or shot in a single area, not including the shooter. But this included the shooter, meaning there was only 3, meaning it shouldn't be counted at all. But they count it anyway. And this is the problem with Gun Violence Archive. It's a joke. It's a cruel joke, but it's a joke. Anyway, let me get back to the, oh shoot, looking on the wrong shit here. Get back to the article. So we know that, according to this article here, they use the Gun Violence Archive for their data, which mass categorizes any gun violence as mass shootings, essentially, anything that they can include. We know they're using Everytown for gun violence, which is literally an anti-gun NGO for the estimated $500 billion cost. All of this is based on falsified data, in a sense. The data is not necessarily fake, it just doesn't apply. And then they claim California has the strongest gun laws in the nation, and those laws save lives. I really wish I could have this person on, because I would love to ask them what life has been saved. Name 1 life saved by the laws in California. There are mass shootings in California every single year. Matter of fact, let me go back to Gun Violence Archive real quick, and let's take a look just how many of those mass shootings, using their data from Gun Violence Archive, are in California. Characteristics, mass shooting. Does it give me a number here? And this is still, are we still using the correct dates? 6,000 killed, 23,944 injured, 621 incidents for 2014 to 2026 in California. I just want to see too, while I'm looking at this. And I have a feeling that's drastically underreported from California. I can't prove it, but I have a serious feeling that that is drastically underreported.
Why would it be correctly reported?
And then it also seems like So, can I do this by state? Yes, I can. Okay, so let's do mass shootings by state for a second. We're gonna go one at a time here. California. Oh, I apologize. I did that wrong. 569 killed, 1,961 injured, 54 mass shootings. And let me put it on screen here. So this might prove to be a dumb idea since I'm doing this on the fly, but regardless, I'm going to do it anyway. Why can't I see it? What's going on here? Do you mind shutting off your screen share? Thank you. All right, what is the problem? Good Lord. Okay. Go away. Back to here. All right, so searching by location, California, they claim it's 54, at least 569 killed, 1,961 injured. And you can see right here that there's really no change. Lots of different gun laws were implemented over these years, and there's basically no change over any of this time. There's a slight dip right here in March or June 2025, something like that, May 2025. And that's about it. All right, so now let's go to another state. Go to Georgia. In Georgia, there's only 27. 237 killed, 913. South Carolina. $34. 155 killed, 592 injured. North Carolina, 25, 205, 695. Florida, 113 they claim, but far less deaths and injuries, only 406, 1396. So the shootings in California have been far more deadly, apparently. Which is odd since assault weapons are banned in California, but not in Texas, or not in Florida or Texas for that matter. There are apparently 88 in Texas with 643, 1,737. Okay, then we go back to California real quick. 569, 1961 with 54 total. Now look at this map again. Let me get rid of California. I mean, there's definitely some dots in California, but it sure looks to me like they try and make it look a lot heavier to one side than California itself, but maybe I'm just projecting there. I guess to be fair, a lot of California is desert, so once you start zooming into these places, you start realizing, oh, there actually is a fuck ton of dots there. They're just... Look at this. Every street corner in some of these neighborhoods. Every single one. This is downtown LA. Apparently I can't click on anything. Whatever. Okay. Let's get back. Let's get into some of the facts here. So they use the point is they use the, let's call it modified data. They use hyper-specific events that fit the narrative, and they ignore the ones that don't, of course, to paint this narrative that it's the access to the guns. When in reality, there is absolutely zero evidence that any restrictions on guns, let alone on gun owners, has led to a reduction in crime anywhere. I've said it many times before. Civilians almost completely cannot own guns in the UK. They can't own any handguns. They certainly can't own any assault weapons. Unless you're a farmer and you own a double-barrel shotgun for shooting game fowl, there's basically no gun ownership whatsoever. They still have shootings every single day in London. Every single day, there is a shooting in London. Australia, we know what's happened there. And a lot of people say, well, but it's so rare, you know. Bonny Beach just happened. Bonny Beach, one of the worst mass shootings outside of the US and in Australia in recent history. After Bonny Beach, Australians and American mainstream news claim that was the first mass shooting they had had since 1999. However, on this show, we found out that that was the first mass shooting they had had in 3 months. 3 months since their previous mass shooting. And remember, the definition I am using is the definition we all recognize. A shooting in a public place could be a private business that's open to the public, like Walmart or something, but it's still a public place. The target is innocent civilians, be it children or adults, doesn't matter, and is ideologically driven. If I say mass shooting, that's what I mean. And generally speaking, there's more than one victim, obviously. Or at least that was the attempt. Tell me about good guys with guns, Austin.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, but don't they cause like more harm than good? Don't they just end up shooting civilians and...
Oh yeah, the closer you are to a firearm, the more likely you are to be involved in a shooting, so...
As far as I know, you're more likely to be killed with your own firearm than use it to defend yourself. That's what I was told. Is that not true?
That's why I keep mine locked in a safe, so they can't get me while I'm sleeping.
Of course, none of that is true, right? Let's look at some of this data here. Hang on, I gotta pull it up now. So I made this argument on X today, and I spent way too much of my day talking about this with people on X. And I will say, I did have one good conversation, sorta. I'm gonna try and continue it with him at another time, but there was one person that gave me some good pushback and a decent conversation. But of course, most just parroted the same talking points with the same stats that don't check out in reality at all, like the $557 billion from Everytown, because these organizations are extremely effective at these narratives. Oh God, I didn't realize he shared a Mother Jones article with me. Anyway, let's see. All right, there's one of them. Sorry, I'm stalling for a second while I get my links up here. All right, I don't know why they're not showing up, but let's try it this way instead. That should be one. Oh no, that's not the right one. Okay. Do know which one that is, though. So the FBI claims that only 4.4% of mass shootings are stopped by good guys with guns. There we go. Okay, so there's 3 of them. Where are the other ones? Now I gotta pull the other ones manually. Whatever. Thankfully, we've done this a time or two. According to Austin, Australia has the second highest rate of rape in the world.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Another thing that's frequently not talked about is the victimization rate of civilians. That are disarmed. Especially if you can compare them before and after. Sorry, I got the links. I'm almost done copying them over so I can actually pull them up. Forbes. Okay, and then Pew Research. All right, so the oldest known research regarding defensive uses of a firearm. This is a good guy with a gun using it to defend himself or someone else. It's from the CDC. And the estimate was anywhere from 500,000 to 3 million defensive uses of a firearm per year. Keep in mind, there's roughly, it obviously varies a little bit per year, but it averages over the last 20 years about 40,000, a little bit less, honestly. 40,000 is getting close to the peak in 2020 and 2021, but about 40,000 firearm homicides a year, or excuse me, deaths with a firearm a year. That includes police shootings, accidents, suicide, and homicide. If you take out suicide, it's about 20,000. It's about 50% of that. So roughly between 15 and 20,000 homicides, police shootings, and accidents per year. Whereas you're talking about between 10 and 50 times as many defensive uses as a gun. Now, there are some problems with this data. The biggest problem is that defensive uses of firearms generally don't end in a report to the police if a shot is not fired. Unless you actually had to shoot somebody, the chances it's going to be reported to the police are pretty slim. I'll give you some anecdotal examples in a minute to illustrate that from my own life. On top of that, that also means that because it is kind of a self-reported thing too, some people might report a defensive gun use that was actually them assaulting somebody or threatening somebody with a gun. Because people obviously occasionally think they're doing the right thing, and they often aren't. Occasionally, you fill it in however you want. We don't have exact numbers. So that does work either way, right? The numbers could be well underestimated. They could be well overestimated. It just depends. But here's why. So if somebody, let's say you're in your home, and you hear a noise outside, you grab your gun, you go outside. You see somebody trying to break into your car, you point your gun at them, they run off. You might report that to the police. And they might take some notes and say, and record what happened. But unless they actually find somebody breaking into cars later that night, or they find the person that attempted to break into your car, no official police report, no official investigation, no official charge is ever going to come from that. And so there's not going to be any official record of your defensive use of your firearm that successfully thwarted somebody trying to steal your car. At the same time, if you are in traffic and get cut off by somebody in a road rage incident, they come up and swing a tire iron at your car and are threatening to kill you, and you point your gun at them and they turn around and go get back in their car. The chances that either of you are going to report that, because usually, nobody's particularly right when it comes to road rage. Not always. I mean, sometimes, but often both people are not exactly in the right. But even so, nothing actually happened. So even if you do call 911, the chances that they're actually going to send an officer out are pretty slim unless you're in like a small town or something and they have nothing better to do. Even then, it's not going to become something that is reported as a crime, or there is no category for defensive use of firearm. So even though it might technically be reported to somebody, it's not going to make it into any sort of reporting system that would tell us how many times somebody successfully used a firearm to defend their property or their person or somebody else. Like I said, I've told all 3 stories on this show at various times. I have personally used my firearm, and technically I used my friend's firearm. Kind of hard to explain, but in defense of myself and of others in 3 separate occasions. Only one of those occasions actually pulled the firearm out and pointing it at somebody. And that was a woman that was being violently assaulted by her very angry boyfriend. The other 2 times, one time I was nearly robbed by a couple tweakers, and that was the situation where my friend literally coming in with his gun on his hip in an open carry fashion was enough to thwart the robbery. And the third situation was more of a one-on-one situation where, again, just the sight of the firearm was enough to stop the assault or attempted assault that was taking place. It also prevented his buddy from jumping in on the matter as well. None of those were reported. Well, except for the one was reported, the one with the boyfriend beating up the girlfriend, because the police, literally I held him at gunpoint until the police arrived. That was reported, obviously. Him assaulting his girlfriend, him threatening his girlfriend with a gun. My use of my firearm to get her away from him was not reported anywhere. In fact, they never even asked me about it. All of that is anecdotal, but it's relevant. Because we don't know nearly how much somebody defends themselves or somebody else with a firearm. Aside from that, the FBI data, like I said, says 4.4%. In reality, that number can be as high as 60%. And we've gone through this data before, so I'm not going to go through it deeply. But just to bring it back to the surface here. Hang on, I gotta figure out which one of these links it is real fast. Why does every website require me to verify that I'm a human now?
I know, right?
Let's see. So this one, FBI tracks active shooting cases where individuals attempt to kill people in public places, excluding those tied to robberies or gang violence. This study is the first to systematically compare how uniformed police and civilians with concealed handgun permits perform in stopping these attacks. Civilians with permits stop the attacks more frequently and face lower risk of being killed or injured than police officers. Officers who intervened during the attacks were far more likely to be killed or injured than those who apprehended attackers later. We also provide evidence that these numbers significantly underestimate the advantages of civilians over officers in stopping these attacks. We explore the implications of the 2 possible identification problems, and there is some evidence of the passage of the constitutional carry laws reduce the number of active shooting attacks. So that's one study. It's not the one I was looking for, though. Again, we've done previous episodes on this. You can go back and find them. I'm sure the title will tell you exactly which one it is. I don't remember offhand at the moment. But if you want an in-depth look at these particular studies, you can do that. And of course, I will post them after this. But FBI report released on September 16, 2014 makes the assertion that active shooter attacks and deaths have increased dramatically since the year 2000, both increasing at an annual rate of about 16%. As the headline in the Wall Street Journal stated, mass shootings on the rise, FBI says. But the FBI made a number of subtle and misleading decisions as well as outright errors. Once the bias and mistakes were fixed, the annual growth rate in homicides is cut in half. When a longer period of time is examined, 1977 to the first half of 2014, deaths from mass public shootings show only a slight statistically insignificant increase, an annual increase not exceeding 1%. The FBI's misleadingly includes cases that are not mass shootings, cases where no one or only one person was killed, while the FBI assures people that it captured the vast majority of incidents falling within the search criteria. The report missed 20 shootings where at least 2 people were killed in a public place. Most of these missing cases took place early on, biasing the results towards showing an increase. So that one also shows errors in FBI's collecting data or intentional outright lies in some cases. See what this one is. Suicides counted for nearly 6 in 10 gun deaths. Gun suicides have increased in the U.S. in recent years, but murders have fallen since 2021. This one is just other stats in general. There we go. This is the one I'm looking for. Of course, it's the last one I look at. Here we go. Massive errors in FBI's active shooting reports regarding cases where civilians stop attacks. Instead of 4.4%, the correct number is at least 34.4%. In 2021, it is at least 49.1%. And if you exclude gun-free zones, it averaged over 50%. The analysis identified a total of 360 active shooter incidents during that period and found that an armed citizen stopped 124. The period being the FBI reporting period of 2014 to 2021. There was another 24 cases that were not included where armed civilians did stop armed attacks, but the suspect never fired his gun. Those cases are excluded from our calculations, though it could be argued that a civilian also stopped what was likely to be an active shooting event. Can't tell what I'm hearing. So these are the numbers right here that they found in the study. Stand by just 1 second. I gotta figure out what this noise is.
Okay. I'll be here.
Fucking dog in the bathroom.
Every time.
Anyway, sorry guys. 2014, 34.4%. 2021, 49.1%. Or the FBI reported it was only 6.6. If you include those cases where the good guy with the gun stopped the shooting before the shooter killed anybody, you get over 60%. The reason the numbers climb every year is because the farther back they go, the harder time they had finding actual cases. They only included cases that they could find direct evidence for, either a police report or a news report. They say right here, there's yet another reason why these corrected percentages are biased downward, as they ignore about half of these attacks occur where guns are banned. So law-abiding citizens who obey those rules would never have a chance to stop them. Let's see. Not sure what this one is. Number of active shooter incidents in places that allowed people to legally carry and stopped by an armed citizen. Altogether, there was 104. Number of active shooter incidents in places that allowed people to legally carry. In total, 204. That's 51%. Between 2014 and 2021, citizens stopped 104 out of 204 potential or actual mass shootings where we could identify that guns were allowed in the area. So 51% of attacks were stopped by people legally carrying concealed handguns. Again, the most recent data is most accurate. And for 2021, 58% of the attacks were stopped in areas where people were clearly allowed to carry. On top of that, a survey by Police One, which surveyed 380,000 active duty and 70,000 retired law enforcement officer members, 86% of members answered that casualties from a mass public school shooting could be reduced or avoided altogether if citizens were able to carry concealed handguns in those places. 77% supported arming teachers and/or school administrators who volunteer to carry at school. No other policy to protect children and school staff had nearly the same support. A deputy in uniform has an extremely difficult job in stopping these attacks, according to Sarasota County, Florida Sheriff Kurt Hoffman. These terrorists have huge strategic advantages in determining the time and place of attacks. They can wait for a deputy to leave the area or pick an undefended location. Even when police or deputies are in the right place at the right time, those in uniform who can readily be identified as guards may as well be holding up a neon sign saying, "Shoot me first." And my deputies know that we cannot be everywhere. And this is exactly why the most effective defense against mass shootings are civilians, law-abiding civilians with guns. Because there are far more of us than there are police. By the very nature, if there are civilians to attack, there are civilians to defend. By definition. And the fact is, most of y'all don't realize that you are surrounded by guns everywhere you go, even in the most liberal state in the country. In my home state of Washington, there was a mass shooting about 4 or 5 years back now at a Walmart. I want to say it was a Walmart in Tumwater, Washington, but I'm not sure if that's correct. I'm going off the memory here. But I remember it sticks out because the police chief complained that going through the surveillance footage was complicated in finding out who was responsible for the incident because of the massive number of civilians that pulled out their firearms upon shots being fired. And it was, in fact, a civilian that ended this. It might have been an off-duty police officer, but only because he happened to be the armed civilian that was closest to the person shooting at the time of the shooting. There were, in this Walmart in Washington State, very blue, very liberal state, there were at least a dozen people, in this case, that were legally armed and that pulled out their firearms, prepared to defend themselves and others during this mass shooting. And it just so happened that the closest person to him did just that. That is true in most public places where guns are legal to carry. The problem is guns are not legal to carry in a lot of public places.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to your detriment.
Well, I gotta hop out of here.
All right, man. I really wish I could remember what I wanted to ask you, but it is what it is. Tell them where they can find you.
MillerTalk.substack.com, MillerTalk_pod on X, and should be live tomorrow unless work gets in the way, but Friday, Saturday nights, live on Twitch, X, Substack, and Rumble.
Real quick, before you go, because I need just a second here. Did the tornado finally take off?
It hasn't dropped again, so
all looks good for now.
yeah.
Well, hopefully you don't get swept up in a tornado tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll see you tomorrow.
Possibly.
I hope so. All right, thank you. I just needed that second.
See you.
Later, man. Don't forget, tomorrow, Dr. Oliver Haydorn will be on the show to talk to us about the Douglas Social Credit System. I've been trying to get that right all week. At 4 p.m. Pacific time is when we will be going live on the air, a little earlier than usual because he is on the East Coast. But it should be a really interesting conversation. And it's a very interesting seeming proposal for why we should change our entire economy, basically. He's going to tell us, hopefully, why it's a good idea, as well as how it is consistent with the American system of government, the American Constitution. Those are that's kind of the bulk of my questions, what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is what the system is that he's proposing, the Douglas Social Credit System, why it's not the same as China, because it's not a social credit system in the sense of the Chinese CCP communist social credit system. We talked about that a little bit last night, just to kind of give a brief on that so that we had something to compare to. But he believes that it could revolutionize the economy, I think. And I don't want to put too many words in his mouth specifically, but certainly the proponents of the Douglas Social Credit System believe that it could revolutionize the economy and make for a more fair and equitable system without using a socialist system. I do have some concerns. It sounds a little bit like modern monetary theory. It's not exactly the same by any means, but it does have some of the same undertones. And there was a few words that were used that I thought I wrote down, but maybe I didn't, that concerned me a little bit. Yeah, apparently I didn't write it down. Anyway, there was a few words that were used that were kind of buzzwords of those, Marxist socialist types. And so I'm definitely going to ask him about that and see what the deal is there. But nonetheless, I apologize for the very scatterbrained show tonight. I was hoping for a little more, and then Austin got distracted because the tornadoes happened right when we went on air in his local area there, and all of this other stuff, basically. So I'm not as honed in as I normally would be. So let's go to a video just to try and give us a minute to bring us back here. Figures. I will get us to a video, I promise. Let's see, which one are we going to go with? Let's go with the teacher.
This message is for the parents who don't know what's going on in the classroom as it relates to kids not being able to interact with what their teachers are trying to engage them with. There is this thing that teachers are talking about that has to do with, let me just give you an example. Okay, so I'm standing in front of the classroom and I say, all right, guys, students, scholars, whatever it is the teacher calls your kids, take out your yellow notebooks, turn to page 14, and the kids just stare. Like they don't even move. Some of them don't even move. Some of them start moving around It's like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something because she's still staring at me, but I don't know. And then they raise their hand and say, do you want us to take out our notebooks?
Okay. Before we continue this, she brings up a really good point at the end of this, or in the second half of this. However, I do want to criticize before we get to that point that, because she's correct. As I've said, when it comes to these issues with students in the classroom, I've said this many times, this is 50-50. A parent-teacher problem. And there's not really more blame to put on one side than the other. There's plenty of other blame we can put on parents for problems with kids, but as far as their attention in the classroom, it's 50-50. And both are so far out of the norm and out of what is right that you can't really blame one or the other more. As far as the teacher, this is partly your fault, because it is your job to teach these kids to do these things. And so if by this point in the year, I don't care if they're kindergarten or ninth graders or whatever, we're in April. If they don't know what to do when you're giving them instructions, you are failing at something. And that cannot be overlooked. Yes, there are further problems than that, absolutely, and I'm going to let her get to that in a minute. But it definitely needs to be pointed out that there's problems with the teaching here, too, if that's the case.
That's a real question. Yes. Okay, so then some of the other students start taking out their notebooks while the others are still just staring. And then when they take out their notebooks, someone else says, what page? What page do you want us to turn to? Okay, turn to page 17. So then some of them start taking out their notebooks and turning pages. By now, some of the ones who are still staring are now like trying to reach in to take their notebooks out and still looking around like, I don't know. I see other people doing stuff on their desk, so I'm going to do it too. And, instructional time is lost just in a simple directive. Just a simple directive. Because it's taking you 3 to 5 minutes to get everybody on the same page just to open their books. That's if you decide that you want to wait for them. You could just leave them and just let them struggle. That's on the teacher. Anyway, this is my theory. I really do think that since COVID, and this is information that's out there, a lot of teachers have reported this kind of behavior. My personal theory is that with the increased exposure to social media, digital entertainment, I think kids are just so used to consuming, they don't recognize when action is required on their parts. They're used to somebody looking directly at them and saying something like, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm just going to get into blah, blah, blah. That's what they're used to. So it's like, hey guys, they're talking to an audience. They're not really talking to me. I'm just a consumer. I'm just watching. So it's not like when the YouTuber or whoever it is says, or the TikToker says, hey guys, welcome back. Or they just get on and they start talking. The kid is getting like a one-to-one direct eye contact from the person who's talking to them, but the kid also is not getting any kind of responsibility for engaging, because the person is not, when the person says, hey, welcome back to my channel, it's not like the kid is going to be like, hey girl, I'm back, what's going on? No, the kid knows that they're not going to say anything back when that person says, welcome back to my channel. And then they go into all of this information that they want to share, or the story or whatever. And so I think kids are used to engaging without engaging, with no responsibility at all. So when the teacher says, all right, guys, take out your workbooks, I think the brain is like, okay, I'm just watching another TikTok. They're talking to an audience because the kid is in the classroom filled with other kids. So there is an audience here. There's no action required on my part. So I'm just going to sit here and wait for the next thing that she's about to say. So even though my teacher said, take out your workbooks, they're about to go into something else that doesn't require me to do anything.
So it's an interesting theory, but there's obviously some big holes in it. Absolutely. Letting your kid watch YouTube. One of the worst things you can possibly do as a parent in 2026. Do not let your kid watch YouTube. If there's, a particular educational video you want them to see or whatever, that's fine. But do not let them just scroll around on YouTube, and do not let them watch YouTube every day. Even one a day is too much. They should never have social media until they're 18. There's nothing positive that comes out of these things. There is only a whole host of negatives, none of which are within your control to fix. Besides taking away the social media, taking away the cell phone, taking away YouTube. But are you prepared to deal with depression, suicidal thoughts, bullying? Although I'm not really on board with that. Bullying has a place in society, I think. Regardless, are you prepared to deal with those things? Because if not, you shouldn't allow your kid access to social media, to YouTube, to technology. Not unfettered, that's for sure. And it does absolutely hurt the attention span. Drastically so. On top of that, or beyond that though, if the kids are not listening to you in the classroom when you tell them to do something, regardless of what their expectation is from YouTube, that's on you as a teacher. You have no follow-up consequences when they don't listen, and therefore, why would they listen? Consequences are an essential component of life. "99% of your job as a parent," and obviously I'm exaggerating and being hyperbolic, but a significant portion of your job as a parent is enforcing consequences for your children's actions, not protecting them from them. Protecting them from them is almost always the worst thing you can do in a situation for your child. And it's hard as hell to not protect them from their consequences of their own actions. It's very hard. But you can't do it. It will destroy them. Your job as a parent is to prepare them to go off into the world. Make them likable, sociable, intelligent human beings, questioning human beings. And that likable thing is very important. If you don't like your kids, other people aren't going to like your kids either. How many parents you know that just can't stand their kids? Of course, they'll never say it, right? They love their kids. But that's different. Of course you love your children. Do you like them? Tough question that many aren't willing to face these days. Anyway, I wish I had more for you today, but I really just don't. I've had a pretty tough week. I want to get some extra time to prepare for the show tomorrow with our guest. Again, Dr. Oliver Haydorn. I really hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, or remembering it correctly, because I don't have it pulled up like I did yesterday. Will be joining us from the... Oh, shoot. Hang on. C.H. Douglas Institute, which you can find at CHD Institute on X, out of Ontario, Canada, apparently, to talk to us about the Douglas Social Credit System. So we look forward to that. That'll be at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you would like to see that, tune into the show, x.com/JBU_show, rumble.com/user/justbetweenus. And most days, you won't be able to tomorrow, but most days, if you go to Rumble and click on the description for the show, you can find a link to the Discord page, and you can join the conversation live anytime. As long as we don't have a guest on, you should be able to do that. And you can call us out on anything that we've said, debate with us, whatever it is. I guess it's been a pitiful show, so we'll just go with a pitiful outro. With that, my name is Chris, and this has been the JBU Show. Sorta.
Bye 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 bye. Wait, I want to be a little bit louder.
Yeah.
This is only between us.
This is just between us.
This is just between us.
Perfect. 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 Perfect.